Hey guys, we're gonna wait for everyone to log in. So please just stay muted and keep your videos off, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Okay, it looks like we got a good amount of people logged in, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Nicole. I'm a member of the East Greenwich Environmental Commission. And first, I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending our pollinator gardening webinar. And before we get started, I just want to note a few things. Please stay muted and keep your video off throughout the entire webinar. When we do questions at the end, we're going to use the chat feature. So throughout the whole webinar, just keep yourself muted and your video off. And if you accidentally turn it on, I can go in and turn you off. So don't worry about it if that happens. And then also the webinar is being recorded and it'll be sent out later today or tomorrow. And then please wait and give your questions at the end of the webinar. And we're going to use the chat feature. I'll explain it again when we do questions, but you can find the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. There's a little icon that says chat and it has a little speech bubble on it. But I'll explain that again once we get to the end of the webinar. Okay, so Kathy Tracy is our presenter today. She's a longtime gardener. She's been gardening since she was 10 years old. She's also a member of the Philadelphia Horticultural Society, and she's volunteered in their butterfly exhibit during their flower show. And with that, Kathy, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Are you hearing me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there's not too much of a echo?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So I wanted to talk today about pollinators. So the reason this is so important is because our pollinators are in trouble and we need them pretty much to survive on this planet. 1/3 of all the food crops in the whole world need pollinators to produce their fruits and vegetables, and 90% of all flowering plants need pollinators. So some of the things that we need pollinators for are apples, blueberries, cranberries, cherries, pears, watermelons, cucumbers, tomatoes, squash, pumpkins. There's a whole lot of things that we need to have pollinators for. So because they're in trouble right now, I thought this would be a good time to talk about some of the flowers that you can have in your yard that will attract them and keep them happy. There's about 50 gardens just dedicated primarily to pollinators in Philadelphia that PHS has been working on for the last couple years. They take over abandoned lots and set up pollinator gardens, and that's been coming along really well. We're really happy about that. There's actually about 4,000 species of native bees in our country, and most of them are just those little bees that you see flitting around on your flowers. They're not the big honeybees that you're used to seeing. The honeybees were actually brought to our country by the settlers 400 years ago. And they are in trouble, really in trouble. Last year, United States beekeepers reported that they had lost about 40% of their bees. And of course, the poor monarchs aren't doing much better. They're an important pollinator too, along with other butterflies and hummingbirds. But the monarchs are suffering basically because of loss of their milkweed from Roundup. And we'll get into all that later. But we'll start off on a happy note. Let's start off with chives, which is the picture that you're seeing here. This is just the regular old garden chives, common chives. And the reason I love chives so much is that in the early spring, early summer, they are the first thing to bloom in the vegetable garden. And it's so nice to see them coming back up every year all by themselves. And the bees love them. They're actually, believe it or not, chives are part of the lily family. We're going to talk about lilies a little bit later too. But they're called common chives because these are the ones, of course, you eat in your baked potatoes. But there's giant, giant ornamental onions that are more, ornamental, and they come up every year too, which is nice. They bloom real early, and you can take the seed heads off after they're done blooming because they will seed around. And unless you want like baby chive plants every year or all over the place, it's good to get those seed heads off of there. The other thing about chives is that if you plant them near lettuce and peas, they'll actually decrease the aphids that get on those things. Okay, let's see. Next, we have salvia. Okay, salvia, sage. Now this is a plant that you see all over the place in the spring because it's an early bloomer and it's in the front of almost every entrance to every school, property, home places. It's just very popular with the landscaping group because it comes up every year. It stays nice in a nice little clump like that, and it blooms really for about 2 months. So you have a long bloom time with it. Now, if you have it in your garden, if you deadhead it, it will rebloom later on in the season. So that's important to know. And in the early fall, you want to cut it back to the ground. It does like a sunny location. It does like well-drained soil, but it is very heat and drought tolerant. There's a lot of different kind of sages. There's scarlet sage, mealy cup sage, garden sage, Texas sage, meadow sage, all kinds of sages. So you have your pick of different colors. This is the one you'll see out and about most of the time, but it's a great little plant for your garden too. And this one is called Superba. So this is a sterile one. So this doesn't reseed around, which is nice. And the hummingbirds and butterflies and bees all like it. You can divide it in the spring if you want. And I can't let sage go by without mentioning pineapple sage because that's one of my favorite plants in the world. Up here, it's only an annual, but it gets to be about 3 feet in diameter. And in the late summer, it has the most wonderful, long red tubular flowers that the butterflies just adore. So, and you can get it in a chartreuse color too, I believe, which is really, really pretty and really brightens up the garden with all the greens. Okay, let's see what's next. Yarrow. Okay, Achillea. Believe it or not, named after Achilles because apparently he used yarrow to treat wounds. I don't know how that worked out for him, but anyway, that's where it came from. Moonshine. The reason I put moonshine up here is because it is, I think, the prettiest of all the yarrows. It stays in a clump. It's got beautiful, like grayish green foliage. The flowers are like that bright, nice yellow lemony color. And if you cut back the flower when it's done blooming, it'll rebloom again, but cut it back to the ground. And then you also get regrowth of the foliage as well. And also it can make nice dried seed heads in the arrangements that if you want to dry it. It looks really well with salvias. So there you go. It does like full sun. It is drought resistant, and it does like well-drained soil. Let me just say one thing. If you get yarrow, don't get the white kind because that kind goes all over the place. It's very aggressive. It gets all throughout your lawn and everything else. Stick with the moonshine. That's the one that you'll do the best with as far as keeping it in one place. Okay, next we have lavender. Okay, everybody loves lavender. Fantastic smell, of course. It is very fussy though. Lavender likes a very well-drained soil. So you guys in New Jersey should do great with lavender. It likes full sun and a really well-drained soil, maybe even up to the point of a sandy soil. If it's too wet, if it gets wet feet, you're going to lose it. It like attracts butterflies and bees, which is nice. There's a new American variety that's much hardier than the French and the English varieties that we get here. And I have not seen it anywhere in the trades yet. I've only seen it from QVC. So if you want to get the American one, I think you're going to have to get it there because it's definitely not in the big box stores yet. There's also a little miniature one called Dilly Dilly, which is a very good bloomer. Now that's not the American one, but if you can't find the American one, that's a good one to get. It's tinier. It's hardier, and it's a heavy bloomer too. Oh, the other thing about lavender is you don't cut it back until you see new growth emerging. So yeah, that's something to remember with lavender. Okay, let's see. What do we have next? Ah, black-eyed Susans. Okay. So this is a native. So if you were interested in native perennials, this is one that you definitely should have. In fact, I was out on the trail today, and darn if I didn't see some black-eyed Susans out there. It grows all the way in the Northeast from Connecticut to West Virginia to Missouri. It's really a great flower. Really brightens up the garden. It makes full sun, well-drained soil. Blooms July, August, and sporadically into October, which is really nice. You can divide it in the spring, and you can let it go for the seed heads have pretty good winter interest. The butterflies and the bees love it. There's also one, it's Rebecca is the name, the Latin name for black-eyed Susan, Rebecca, and there's a Rebecca maxima that gets to be 5 or 6 feet high, and the bees just go crazy with it. So it has to go in the back of your garden, obviously not near your back door or your front door because you can't be going in and out with all the bees all over it. But it really looks great. Black-eyed Susan looks great with Russian sage, sedums, bee balm, and we're going to talk about some of those things later on too. The Maxima, the big one, that blooms constantly from mid-July to early September. So it is really probably worthwhile. It does like to self-seed, so you might have to, watch that. But otherwise, it's a fantastic addition to your garden. Okay, what do we got next? Rose of Sharon. Oh my God, love this. My mother had this when we were growing up, and the bees were just all over it all the time. It's actually Rose of Sharon is actually in a hibiscus, so it's in the hibiscus family, and it's one of those. It's like a little shrub. It only gets 5 or 6 feet tall. They do have miniatures now, and it flowers all summer long. But you definitely want to get a sterile cultivar. So that's why I put Danica up here, because Danica is a sterile cultivar of Rose of Sharon, because it does definitely self-seed around, and it has long tap roots that are hard to dig up. So if you see it seeding around, you have to get them up like immediately. You can use it as a hedge or a specimen plant. You can train it into a tree form. It does real well down the shore. So it's one, if you're near the coast, then that's definitely, well, it does well here too. I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, but I have not seen it do well anywhere around this area. It's really good if you have a real narrow space to plant something in, because it doesn't need much in the way of surface area. Bees and butterflies also really like this Rose of Sharon. It's since it is a hibiscus, there is of course the other hibiscus, the perennial hibiscus that the bees also like, and that is also very common in this area. You'll see that a lot, but it's not the attractant that the Rose of Sharon is. So it comes in a not even a close second. Okay, and next we have cannas. Okay, so cannas are great. Now in New Jersey, I think they might come up every year as a perennial. I don't think you have to dig them up. I have to dig them up because I'm up in Exton. So they're tropical, of course. They're from South America. So they're a little too cold for me to leave in the ground up here every year. But oh my God, so beautiful, and a really hummingbird magnet. The hummingbirds just love cannas. It comes in this beautiful Tropicana, as you can see, perfectly beautiful leaves and flowers. There's also a bronze leaved with red flowers called Wyoming that the hummingbirds really like a lot too. It will grow in bogs. There's another special variety of it. It's called Canis glauca. And if you have a boggy area, then that's the one to go for. I have to dig mine up, like I said, every year, but it does fine. I dig it up, I put it in the garage, does great. I put it back out in the spring, and it multiplies. So, you can probably get away with, if you have to dig it up, just digging up half of them and overwintering them inside in the garage or something like that, or a basement. They take full sun, and they're just so beautiful that I think it's worthwhile for me anyway to dig them up and bring them up every year. When you plant them in the spring, the soil has to be about 60 degrees before they'll start moving along. So we had a cool spring here up in Exton this last year. So my poor cannas haven't even started blooming yet, but they're coming along, and they look great with black-eyed Susans, daylilies, spider flowers, asters, anything that you have is going to look beautiful in front of this as a backdrop. Okay, and our next flower is Russian sage. Ooh, boy, the bees do like this, but also the hummingbirds and the butterflies too. But especially the bees. There's a perennial hibiscus right in the back of the picture on the right. So anyway, Russian sage is in the mint family. So everything in the mint family has a square stem, just as a little side note. It really has a very attractive gray-green foliage as well. And it blooms from late June all the way into October. It's really a very satisfying plant to have. Now, the regular Russian sage is pretty tall. It's like a good 3 feet tall, so 3 or 4 feet tall. So you might want to put that in the back, or if you want, there's also now a miniature Russian sage that only gets to be like about a foot and a half high. Likes full sun, well-drained soil. It's heat and drought tolerant. You cut it back to the ground in the early spring. And you can actually create like a new plant if you bend a branch down and cover it with dirt. It'll root from that little area too. Looks great with daylilies, bee balm, phlox, zinnias, sedums, black-eyed Susans. So really nice addition to your garden. And like I said, the bees especially like it a lot. Okay, let's see what we got next here. Asiatic lilies. Okay, the lily family, oh my God, just let me tell you, there are thousands of lilies, thousands. There's 8 different divisions of lilies. The Asiatic lilies are the first ones to bloom. They usually bloom in June. So they've pretty much come and gone now. But and they don't have too much of a scent to them, not as much as the Oriental lilies that come later on in the season. The June ones, probably the ones you'll see. The Connecticut King is like a really great one. Enchanted is a really great one. There's no blue in the lily family, but there's every other color. So the Oriental lilies bloom around August, and I guess probably the most famous of them is Stargazer. That's that bright pink one with the white edges. The ones that bloom in July are your tiger lilies, and they're called Aurelian. There's a black dragon and a golden showers that are just gorgeous, and some of them are blooming right now. And I know you can get the bulbs for them from QVC. So something to think about. They do like well-drained soil and full sun. You don't want to cut those big, long stems back, though, until they're completely brown. Otherwise, you'll really damage the ability of them to come back pretty much the next year. You can cut off like the spent flowers, and they do make wonderful cut flowers. They might need to be divided about every 5 years because sometimes they just get too clumpy. But they do need a little bit of bone meal when you originally plant them. You should put like a handful of bone meal in there, and you're really supposed to add a little bit of bone meal every year. You can just sprinkle on top of the soil when they first pop through in the spring. And the bulbs, when you get them, you always want to plant them like 2 or 3 times deeper than the height of the bulb. So, for instance, if you have like a 3-inch tall bulb, you want to plant them like probably 9 inches deep. And that's true for all the lilies except for Madonna, which is one that's been around for a long time. They say it's like, I don't know, 7,500 years old. And that goes just right under the soil, but that's a white one. So anyway, that's our lilies. And if you have these 3 or 4 different kinds, you can have lilies blooming in your garden like all summer long, which is fantastic because they are fantastic, especially the ones that smell so nice at the end of the summer. Okay, next we have lobelia, and this is another native. native of Pennsylvania. It was found in Pennsylvania by the early explorers. In fact, called the Latin name for it is Lobelia cardinalis, was named by the Queen of Spain because the red color reminded her of the cardinals' hats. But this is something that, now this is, we're going to get way off the track here because Lobelia likes shade and it likes wet feet. So this is like totally different than the rest of the flowers that we've been seeing so far. This will not do well if you let it dry out, and it will not do well unless it has some quite a bit of shade. So a lot of people have it that have streams or boggy areas. It does very well in them, and it blooms. Those spikes come up about 3 or 4 feet high, and it blooms from June to September. So the hummingbirds and the butterflies, of course, love this, and it does. It does have some blues and purples too. So you may want to try. Well, the red is of course the most spectacular, but if you want to try the blue, there's one called Lobelia syphilitica, which, believe it or not, is like syphilis. It was used to treat syphilis back in the day, and that's got a really beautiful sky blue flower, which is lovely. You're supposed to divide this every 3 years and take out the woody part in the central part of it. And it doesn't take much mulch. You're not supposed to heavy mulch it in the winter. You're supposed to just leave about an inch of leaf litter over top of it. It will seed itself, and it looks probably best in groups. Oh, it also comes in white. I almost forgot that. Okay, and it looks great with irises and astilbes and daylilies. So, okey-dokey. Let's see what we got next here. Oh, that was the end of our pictures of flowers. So now we want to talk about pollinators a little bit, because their biggest threat is pesticides. And the 2 worst pesticides that we have that is really decimating our pollinators are neonics and Roundup. Neonics are a pesticide that coats the seed, and it's used in big ag with corn, soy, and cotton, and it's used like quite a bit. It's systemic. It's a systemic drug that goes into every part of the plant, including the pollen and the nectar. So, of course, if you have bees pollinating it, they're going to die, and every other insect that gets on it too. You need really to think about. I'm going to get into this a little bit too, into buying organic stuff, because they say like 90 to 95% of all the corn in this country is used with, as well as most of it being genetically modified to tolerate Roundup. And it really just is not a good thing at all. So we want to stay away from neonics, they're called. They are really, really bad. And the worst part about it is that they can spread from agricultural areas into nearby meadows. And the drug is like actually taken up by willow trees and wild clover. So they have estimated that, in the last 20 years, the United States agricultural products are almost 50% more toxic to insect life. This drug, these neonics are banned in the European Union and in Canada. They're not banned here yet, but I will say that New Jersey has the strictest anti-neonic laws in the country. So you guys should be very proud of your legislators for doing that. Roundup, of course, is the other one that is bad, bad, bad. I mean, it's known now to cause cancer, but the reason that it's used so extensively is because Monsanto was able to genetically modify the corn and soybean crops to be resistant to it. And the reason they wanted something like Roundup to spray on their crops is because of milkweed. Milkweed loves to grow in these cornfields and soybean fields, and it's hard to kill. It's a tough weed. But of course, the monarchs depend on it. That's what they lay their eggs on. So if you've got all these huge areas, huge fields of, Roundup sprayed corn and soybeans, then the poor butterflies, monarchs, aren't going to be able to have anything to lay their eggs on. So it's been estimated that, it's caused a 90% decline in monarch population in the last 20 years. So that's something to think about. Besides the fact that it causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and it's banned in 13 different countries. And these things not only kill and harm the pollinators, but all insects. Whatever insects get near this stuff, it's going to hurt them, and that hurts the insect-eating birds. And of course, bats eat insects too. So now you're getting into the spread of these drugs into the environment. But there are things that you can do besides planting these flowers. If you would go online and look up bcityusa.org, the Pollinator Protector Program is called the millionpollinatorgardens.org. And you can register your garden, your township, your college campus, your homeowners association to be, a friend to pollinators. They have specific ones for monarchs. They have specific ones for bees. But to certify, of course, you can't use any pesticides on your property. You need to have like a food source, which is, of course, the flowers and the nectar. Water source, so you need like either a little pond or maybe a water fountain, or just some little bird bath would be fine. They do need, insects do need, especially these pollinators, do need a little bit of wild area. So you want to leave part, you can't have a pristine garden. You want to have a little bit left sort of half wild. So especially the wild bees, those little wild bees that I was telling you about, that we have 4,000 species of them in this country. Most of those little guys, they don't live in hives. They live in the ground, or they just nest in trees. They don't make hives. They don't make honey. They don't have a queen. They just need like a little wild space to hide and to be protected from predators. So hopefully that I've talked you into buying some of these flowers and not using pesticides and eating a little bit of organic produce. I did want to give you the 12 dirty dozen. Okay, these are fruits and vegetables that have the worst problem with pesticides, fungicides, you name it. Don't get them unless they're organic, unless you're really going to wash the hell out of them. Okay, so the dirty dozen are apples, celery, cherries, grapes, kale, nectarines, peaches, pears, potatoes, spinach, strawberries, and tomatoes. Okay, and that is it. I am ready for your questions.
All right, that was awesome. Okay, so
Thank you.
for anyone who has a question, there should be a toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and there should be a little icon that says chat with a little speech bubble on it, and you can click on that and the chat box will pop up, and you can type your question in there and I'll read it aloud. And so you can go ahead and do that now. Well, while we're waiting for if anyone has any questions, we did get one comment from Sharon. She said that her cannas come back every year and multiply like crazy, and she doesn't dig them up. So I'm guessing maybe in our area that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think you're probably good in New Jersey. It's not quite South America, but
Yeah.
pretty soon will be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks, oh, here we go. Okay, so Diane asks, are pesticides like malathion dangerous to bees if only sprayed on plant leaves?
Well, if you can, if you can only get them on the leaves, good for you. But yeah, I mean, that would be a tough thing to do. You'd have to have a pretty accurate sprayer. Really, you know what? I just stay away from them. Don't even use any pesticides at all. It's killing something, and that's something that could be eaten by something else. So I know it's hard to see little animals or little bugs and stuff eating your vegetables and your flowers, but you know what? God made enough stuff for all of us here on this planet. You can give a little bit to the insects.
Do you have any tips for how to repel some of those in your garden? I know you mentioned chives.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. As far as vegetable gardening goes, oh my God, there's a whole list of things that you can plant in between other things that'll help keep them, keep them back.
Mhm.
But really, sometimes with bugs, all you need to do is like either hit them with a good spray of water, a sharp spray of water to get them off, and after a while they give up and they move on. There are all kinds of organic um, things that you can use. BBT is one. There's trying to think of the name of the other one, but um, there is stuff you can put on your grass. There's stuff that will not hurt, anything but that little one bug that you're trying
Mhm.
to get rid of. So yes, there are plenty of things you can do. There's I don't know if any of you people ever watch You Bet Your Garden, but that's a show that's on PBS, or it used to be. Anyway, it's now out of Allentown. But You Bet Your Garden, you can Google it. They have a whole selection of organic pesticides that you can use. Plus, if you go on that website about the Million Pollinators Challenge, they have a whole list of organic things that you can use too on your garden and flowers.
Good to know. Tina wants to know, is neem oil organic?
Yes, it is. Very good, Tina. Neem oil is good.
And then Michael just made a comment. He says, to give us some hope, in his area, he's seen more honeybees this year than he has in a long time.
Okay. Well, you can really, your legislature is leading the country in this. You should be very proud of them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Um, and then Tina says that, just so everyone knows, You Bet Your Garden is on Channel 39 on Wednesdays at 5:30. And then Sharon said that they use something called Bee Safe, like BE,
Good.
in
Good.
their veggie garden, which,
Great.
have you heard of that before?
No, I've never heard of that, but that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Because if it's safe for bees, then it's safe for, everything. So
Mhm.
that's good.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. I think we're good. Um,
Okay. Well, I hope
so
everybody got a little bit of this message that I was trying to get across tonight.
I did. And I just want to thank you so much for a great presentation. This was really great.
Oh, you're welcome, Nicole. It was a lot of fun for me too.
And thank you to everybody who listened in. This was great. And I hope everyone has a good evening.
All right. Thanks, Nicole.
Uh-huh. Bye.
Bye-bye.